Who here thinks that cigarette smoking is dangerous to your health? Please raise your hands. Well, that's almost everyone except for a few who are still conversing. You may now put down your hands. Congratulations to the excellent educational system where you came from. Now, how would you feel if I told you that cigarettes save lives? Now, let that sink in for a moment. Awesome, right? Because I know some of you are smokers here. But before you criticize the medical education system of the Philippines, where I come from, let me give you a disclaimer, which is very simple. Smoking kills. As a general internist who has practiced for 5 or so years, I've seen the damage that smoking has done to millions of Filipinos who come to my clinic and other people's clinics. I've seen cancer, I've seen lung disease, heart attack, stroke. The anguish and pain that these patients feel are things that you will never, ever forget. But despite all the health warnings, cigarettes have been killing people around the world for hundreds of years. In fact, in the past century, 100 million people died because of cigarette or smoking-related deaths. And as you can see from the graph, this has already been surmounted and exceeded by just the first quarter of this century. In fact, by the end of the 21st century, we're expected to have 1,000 times more deaths because of smoking. My country is no different. In fact, in the Philippines, we have one of the highest rates of cigarette smoking in the world, with 1 in 3 Filipinos lighting up and smoking that cigarette. That also translates to 10 Filipinos dying every hour. Every hour. And because of this huge public health emergency, it's no wonder that the Department of Health of my country has sounded the alarm, has tried to do everything in the past few decades. It has tried ad campaigns, jingles, and yes, we busted out that mascot just to get people to stop smoking. But unfortunately, there's a segment of our population that's recalcitrant, that's stubborn, does not want to stop smoking. And we try to find out why. Here's the catch, why they don't want to stop smoking. Essentially, it's about price. Did you know that a pack of cigarettes in the Philippines, that's 20 cigarettes, costs just 30 pence? When comparing that to the United Kingdom, where a pack of cigarettes is worth around 7 to 8 pounds, we definitely have more fun in the Philippines. Just our tourist motto. But because price is such a huge driver of smoking consumption in the Philippines, we tried to find a policy that targeted prices. And among all the policies that we looked through, one thing that stood out was the sin tax. The sin tax is a tax on the prices of cigarettes and alcohol with the intention of increasing the prices of those two products. This type of policy has been vetted by the World Health Organization, by multiple experts all around the world, and a mountain of evidence if you can search online. Unfortunately, all of that meant nothing to the single, and what I say, the biggest challenge to healthcare reform in the country. Let me introduce you to the Congress of the Republic of the Philippines. You see, we love to make fun of the parliaments of our respective countries, but our parliament is a different animal. I say that because, as you can see from the picture, one chronic problem we have is absenteeism. As you can see, most congressmen aren't even there. In fact, some congressmen spend their whole terms back in their houses, not passing a single bill on the floor. One other colorful character in our Congress is this guy. I'm not sure if you recognize him. He's the world's best pound-for-pound fighter with titles in 8 different weight divisions. He is the Honorable Representative Manny Pacquiao. But get this, just a few weeks ago, we held our national elections, and he has graduated from the lower house of Congress to the Senate. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're now looking at Senator-elect Manny Pacquiao. You see, the Senate is also populated by other colorful characters. Like, if you see on the far left, that's Senator Bongbong Marcos. He's the son of one of the former dictators that we toppled 3 decades ago, and who now has returned, claiming that the dictatorship was the best thing that happened to the Philippines. Beside him is Senator Tito Sotto. He's a comedian known for slapstick and misogyny, also accused of rape sometime in the past, something that he wants to bury. And the last person I want to introduce to you is the guy with the fashionable yellow-tinted glasses seated. He's Senator Juan Ponce Enrile. He's a guy who was the general of Senator Marcos's father and is now accused of graft and corruption. It is these kinds of people that populate our parliament, and unfortunately, they seem to be in the pockets of Big Tobacco. And Big Tobacco has used all of its power to try to stop the sin tax bill from being passed in our Congress. But they went even further. They got farmers from their plantations to come to Congress and protest the sin tax bill. They say that it's the voice of the people. They claim that the sin tax is anti-poor, that the sin tax will actually destroy their livelihoods. Both are blatant lies, obviously. But as the days went by, these protests became larger and became more violent. With such huge opposition coming against the sin tax bill, what did we in the movement have? We had no money, no ads, no machinery at all. How did we break boundaries? Here is what we did. The first thing we did was to call together all the experts, professionals, and educators in different specialties of healthcare, come together and send out their strong voice supporting the sin tax bill. We were breaking boundaries in the sense that this healthcare sector was totally silent before. We didn't dabble in politics. But now, the silent minority is now silent no more. Secondly, we used social media to launch our campaign. And I was one of those keyboard warriors. I'm sure some of you may have done so in the past, in some of your advocacies, maybe a relationship or two that you have been passive-aggressively talking about. But here, we were talking about the sin tax bill. And what we were trying to do was to muster the support of friends, family, our students, and even our whole social network. And this is where we felt we were part of something bigger, that we were all fighting, standing, united for the cause of the health of the nation. The final thing that we did, which broke boundaries, was to break the culture of sensitivity that we hold as Filipinos. We call that delicadeza. We don't want to insult anyone. We don't want to incite anger or conflict among anyone. But we broke that by launching an online social media campaign to name and shame those senators who were voting against the bill. Now, we did not know how these senators would react. For all we know, they could have just huddled together and held fast to their convictions. And they could also listen to the voice of the people and change their minds. How do you think they reacted to this name and shame campaign? On the day of the vote, it was 10 votes to 9, with just one vote going for the sin tax bill in terms of the margin. And so you know how Filipinos really love to take photos? We love to take photos of our food, our outfits of the day, and yes, we also take photos when bills are signed into law. So here is a photo of our president signing the sin tax bill into the sin tax law. As you can see, Senator Enrile with the yellow-tinted glasses doesn't seem too happy about the whole situation. But the funny thing about this picture is that if you look towards the far left, there's this lady in red who seems very happy about the sin tax bill. It's funny because she is Commissioner Kim Henares, the head of the agency called the Bureau of Internal Revenue, essentially the taxation agency of the Philippines. So she's very happy. She's now going to meet the revenue targets for the year. But beyond getting the sin tax passed, what was the actual impact of the sin tax? How did we make cigarettes save lives? Here's the catch, my friends. The sin tax was able to generate huge amounts of revenue. From 60 billion pesos in 2012, we are able to generate 140 billion pesos in 2015. What is unique about our sin tax is that 85% of all that money is going to be allocated directly to health. That means that smokers and drinkers are actually funding and propping up our whole healthcare financial system. And here's the actual impact to the people on the ground. All that money will now go to the 2 lowest socioeconomic quintiles of the country. That translates to 14 million Filipinos receiving healthcare for free in any public healthcare facility all across the country. But more importantly, because there was such an excess of money, we're now able to give a 50% discount on all the healthcare bills of the next 20 million Filipinos. And that's in total 60 million people who have access to healthcare at little to no cost. Don't you think that that's an amazing thing that we achieved? But after all of this, there must be something more. It's not just about funding healthcare. You see, the problem in the Philippines, especially in terms of healthcare infrastructure, is that the reason behind all of this, and the excuse that we always use, is that we don't have any money. Our facilities are overcrowded, our staff are underpaid, and essentially we don't deliver quality healthcare. So what did the sin tax do? The sin tax was a game changer. The sin tax made us think of things that we would never have dreamed of doing in a developing country. With the sin tax, we were not just able to dream, but we were able to dream big. Here is the groundbreaking of a House for Hope, which is a home for patients undergoing chemotherapy. In this picture, we are not endorsing the fact that patients with very poor immune systems are actually digging up dirt, which might be bad for their health. The main point of this slide is to show that with the sin tax, we're able to fund dialysis centers, diagnostic machines. We're able to renovate, repair, and even build hospitals all across the country. The sin tax literally revolutionized the landscape of the healthcare system of the Philippines. And that's something that we would jump for joy about, right? Something that would make us dream of the next 10 years, of the next 20 years, and how the healthcare system would look after that span of time. But at this point, we must take time to reflect back on why we instituted the sin tax in the first place. You will say, Dr. Rabe, isn't the sin tax really for smoking? Did it affect the number of smokers in the country? You see, when the sin tax was instituted in 2012, the smoking prevalence in the Philippines was around 33%, or 1 in 3 Filipinos. After the sin tax, that actually decreased to 1 in 4 Filipinos smoking. That translates to around 8 million non-smokers in the country, and that also translates to 70,000 deaths from tobacco averted. Now, isn't that another amazing thing that we achieved in the country? But aside from all of these achievements, aside from gloating in the success of the sin tax bill, we have to start asking important questions like, should we really prop up our whole healthcare system on smoking and drinking? Do you want some segment of the population to keep on smoking and keep on drinking just to support our healthcare system? These and other financial policy questions are the reasons why healthcare advocates like me and my friends have gone abroad and have trained everywhere just to learn health policy. But wherever we go, we transplant the collective aspiration for universal healthcare from the steaming tropical islands of the Philippines to anywhere in the world, like here in this city with the craziest weather imaginable. But wherever we go, we should remember that with some unity, cooperation, and even creativity, we can have cigarettes save lives. And this is why I'm standing before you here today. I'm standing before you here today to tell you the story of millions of Filipinos whose healthcare system has been radically changed. I'm telling you the story of healthcare workers which we send out all over the world to care for you in your hospitals and clinics. This is their story, and this is our story. Thank you very much for listening.